Yo, it's Rapmythology, the reincarnation of Ramakrishna. You watching Prince's Dionysus. It's a special one for y'all right here. Yeah, it's the reincarnation of Ramakrishna. To all the non-believers out there, it's all good. The spirit realm support me, you know what I mean? Peace and love to all those out there who have lost a loved one during these tragic times. Hold your head, baby, in quarantine. We halfway through it. It's gonna be a lit summer, y'all. It's V-God, aka Krish. Donate to the cause at Rapmythology on Cash App. Shout out to India. Shout out to the West Indies. All my people out there. Shout out to Thailand, Pattaya. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody in NYC, Arizona, Colorado, Vegas, Cali, China, Africa, Australia. I see you out there. Without further ado, Prince's Dionysus. Let's get it.
Cause in this life, things are much harder than in the afterworld. In this life, you're on your own.
The artist, formerly known as Prince, is an incarnation of the Greek god Dionysus. An archetype is an individual that has personality traits that reflect the characteristics of a particular deity. I just did a video on Flavor Flav and his archetype of Papa Gidi. You can go check that out. Dionysus is the same energy. It's the same energy force with a different culture and different name. In fact, if you study the Haitian rituals dedicated to Papa Gidi, you can get an idea of how the ancient Greek cult of Dionysus worshipped when it came to ritual madness and religious ecstasy. Although Dionysus is characterized as benign and beneficent, as any Olympian god, this story reveals the cruelty Dionysus was capable of inflicting on mortals. The cult of Dionysus had beliefs contrary to the popular religion of the time. Dionysus is a nature god of fruitfulness and vegetation. He's especially known as a god of wine and ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and theater in ancient Greek religion. Dionysus held a staff called a thyrsus. Sometimes wrapped with ivy and dripping honey, it is both a beneficial wand and a weapon used to destroy those who oppose his cult and the freedom he represents. His wine, music, and ecstatic dance free his followers from self-conscious fear and subvert the oppressive restraints of the powerful. Dionysus sported a purple long robe. People wore robes in black and white dedicated to him. Purple was worn to religious festivals and events. Those who partake of his mysteries are possessed and empowered by the god himself. The cult of Dionysus is also a cult of souls, and he acts as a divine communicant between the living and the dead. So Dionysus was a side baby. Zeus had a baby with this chick named Semele, who was his mistress. Zeus' wife was named Hera. So Hera found out about Semele and tried to get her killed. And Semele ends up having a premature birth. And boom, you got Dionysus. There's like 100 different versions of this story because Dionysus was worshipped all throughout Europe. So Hera doesn't like Dionysus. Hera threw him into a state of madness in which he wandered about through many countries on earth. He goes to the first oracle of Dodona, but on his way there he was stopped by a lake, which prevented his proceeding any further. One of the two donkeys he met there carried him across the water, and the grateful god placed both animals among the stars, and donkeys or asses remained sacred to Dionysus. Dionysus wandered through Egypt, he proceeded through Syria, and traveled all of Asia, and the most famous part of his wanderings in Asia is his expeditions to India, which is said to have lasted 3 or according to some even 52 years. When he went to these distant regions, he was never met with a kind reception. Dionysus and the host of Pans, Satyrs, and Bacchic women by whom he was accompanied conquered his enemies. The spread of European nations throughout the world and the extinction of indigenous tribes were also incorporated into his European mythology. After Dionysus had thus proved to the Thebans that he was a god, he went to this place Argos, and the people there also refused to acknowledge him. He made the women mad to such a degree that they killed their own babies and devoured their flesh. So you can see that Dionysus had this dark side to him as well. The Bacchic festivals were known for their wild and dissolute character. So Prince and Dionysus also had this power complex about themselves. And, Prince also drove women crazy himself. Back to Prince and Purple Rain. So after that movie, Purple Rain, his career absolutely took off. That movie made him an icon. He had to get across Lake Minnetonka in Purple Rain. He was jokingly playing with his girlfriend, and he's like, yo, you ever been in Lake Minnetonka? I think he might have pushed her in, I'm not sure. But this is that point in his career where he decided he was going to do what he had to do to get to the level of power he desired. Sloan Bella, in the reading I'm about to play, talked about how unhappy Prince was with the shit that he did in order to get to the level of fame that he achieved. Prince was also into the orgies and the sex magic rituals. He was on some real next level shit. Prince talks about all the things that he had to atone for during the early stages of his career in this reading by Sloan Bella. Let's get into it.
When I'm picking up on Prince's energy, and I got it really strongly. Number one, on the other side, he is both flamboyant and contemplative. This was the combination of who he was as a person. Even though he was a highly spiritual being according to himself. In other words, when he came onto the planet, he acknowledges that he really felt that he was one with the other side. He never thought that he was different. He never thought that he didn't have to atone for his actions. He's very specific about that, telling me about the actions that he needed to, I'll use the word atone for, but acknowledge and deal with as he crossed over. So he was not a person who said, you know what, I'm gonna go do this and who cares? I've got 50 years to live, no one cares, and if I go to hell, I don't care. That was actually not him. He was very aware of his wrongdoings in this life. So he led me all the way back to his early childhood, and he talked about the relationship between him and his father, and he talked about the interaction, which has been described at times as completely volatile, stressful, idealization, combative, back and forth. What he showed me was prior to this life, both of the men in the family, Prince and his father, I'm talking about his biological father, had actually been brothers in a past lifetime. So they came through again together. And there was this kind of clamoring for recognition within the family unit. Even though Prince was obviously the child and coming in as a young child, the father seemed to have memory of Prince's power from the past life because the two were going around again at it in this life. So that's where that stemmed from. He kind of wanted to get that out of the way and saying that if he could have remembered the point of why he was actually born, told me that he got completely sidetracked from his life as it was intended in its most spiritual essence, and then went down the road of performer. So that is extremely interesting to me because here is a man who achieved tremendous success, tremendous fame, was born with outstanding talent, musicality, instrumental abilities that far are below other people away. I mean, he knew how to play pretty much every instrument. So his structure of music and understanding it was completely off the hook. And yet, what he says is, I came into this life and was sidetracked by that, which I found most interesting because most people would say he fulfilled his dream. He's really guiding me back to what I initially opened this video with. He wants me to focus on the artist formerly known as Prince, and then he wants you to remember the symbol that he called himself. Now, I just thought it was an ingenious way. I remember at the time thinking he outsmarted the really messed up, music industry who tends to take ownership over the talent as if it's their talent. And I thought this guy figured a way out of his contract, which he probably signed, didn't read the fine print, or his lawyers screwed him up, or the agent screwed him up, which happens quite a bit. I mean, If you read some of the contracts, even that we psychic types get, it says, you sign this into perpetuity. Who signs something into perpetuity? Nobody. That's why Michael Jackson doesn't own his own name as far as his website goes, because he signed it away and the record company owns it. So Prince was in the same problem as what I felt. So I figured he just was being a smart ass and put the symbol up. I really never gave it another thought until he literally energetically came up to me, grabbed me by the face, turned my head to the left and said, look. When I looked at it from his perspective, I understood what he was doing. I don't know why I didn't see it. I should have seen it. This man was doing sigil magic. He actually created the symbol to move the energy out of the dark that he had gotten himself into, and this is how he worded it to me, that he had gotten himself into, meaning through his own actions, he was going down a dark path. The symbol that he created for his name, and it sounded good to say it was to push the record companies away and release them from the control that he felt he had over their ownership of his name. Who owns someone's name? That's obnoxious. Anyway, I thought that's why he created it, but as he showed me, he started to explain what he was doing, and I'm like, it's sigil magic. What is that? That is people who will do symbology, okay? They will do symbols. They may put it on a t-shirt logo. They may have it in a logo in their business. It has a double meaning. It is the symbol for their business, but the meaning behind the symbol is magically charged. Of course, he likes to remind everybody he could play basketball like nobody's business, which still strikes me as really funny because there's tall people out there that can't shoot hoops, but this man could really do it. So he began to notice that his ability to really succeed in life came from a combination of sheer will, the relationship that he had with his father and the past life and the karma between the two, and his ability to call the energy in a sigil way. He's a strong, dynamic personality who tells me he really messed up in his human form. He's talking about early on in his life, which is probably when I was growing up with the music in my teens and in my 20s. He goes back to that time frame and says that he had this complex of power where, this is how he's trying to show it to me. It's not that he didn't love the girlfriends and women that he was with, because he did, but he liked to extract their power. He's showing me how he did this through the art of sexuality. Sounds kind of strange, and I'm not talking about tantric sex and holding your energy. I'm not talking about any of that. He's literally talking about taking the breath of others and taking the energy of others while involved in the sexuality or the sexual energy of interaction. And that is how he got his power. So he's kind of showing me, and how he's showing me is he's showing me groups of people, mostly women, that he was very physical with in a sexual way, and they were sexual with each other. And in his creation of that, which he's showing me looked like a musical palette to him. It's very strange. Looked like a musical palette to him. I mean, it looks like, some kind of orgy to me, but all right, so I'm tempering it back. But there's people all together, and he is there and he's talking to them, and in his communication with them and what he's saying, he's speaking something. So he's speaking a little bit in magical terms. He's speaking from the perspective of utilizing their energy. So this to me is like when somebody's speaking in Latin, I can't even put words to it, but when somebody's speaking in Latin and they are invoking spirit into the room, or they are pushing spirit out of the room, he is doing something along these lines, but I couldn't tell you where it's from. And I actually think that he was a full-fledged occultist from what he's showing me. This is where he got his information. So he was in touch with beings that were not necessarily on the earth plane, but actually through another dimension. And he was able to bring them in through the use of the sexual energy or the sexual rhythm. And I don't think it's sex the way you and I have sex. I have a feeling it's not like that. It doesn't seem, well, I don't know how you guys have sex, but it doesn't seem like that. It seems different to me. It seems like it's ritual magic. And then that is how he got his name or symbol. Okay, that's how he got the symbol to call himself the artist formerly known as, and put the symbol in there. That symbol was presented publicly in order to harness the energy of those that viewed it, so that he could keep his energy here. And he's saying that when he died, this is what ran out. So he no longer chose to respond to his environment in that capacity, and he began to try to harness the energy to correct his actions from the past. So he was trying to flip the energy for himself, kind of expecting that he may not live a lot longer. His death was not a surprise to him. And once again, I'm going to sound like a conspiracy nut, but it wasn't the way that they said. Although at this point, he's not revealed to me exactly how he saw his death. I know how we saw it because we read about it. I remember, you guys remember. But he hasn't shown me. So what he's showing me is up until the point of death. And by the way, he kind of knew he was going to die, but it's weird. Don't assume it's the way that it was presented, because he was in the middle of working this energy around to come back into a different way of thinking. And he was about to begin to speak about doing this, and then boom, dead. So this is what he's showing me, but he's going back to his early life and what he practiced in order to harness that energy. And basically what he's letting me know is he's letting me know that there are certain things about what he did that were not in God's eyes or light. And that's what he was trying to atone for before he died. And I think something about that came and backfired for some reason. I also want to speak about his son. This is also what I want to speak about with him, because the son, the karma with the son and the behavior of him with his wife with the son, and the death of his son immediately after the birth of his son, meaning the son passed away, I think right after birth. But what he's showing me with this is that there were other energies at work at the time, and that sometimes a soul is promised but not to you. He's very philosophical and come across almost religiously philosophically, explaining that the religions that we know on earth, so all of us, whatever religion we are, and I don't even care what religions those are, whether it be his religion, my religion, your religion, whoever's religion, he's basically showing me that as you follow that path on earth, there is a purpose for it, but there is a lot missing from all of these ways of teaching that we are not allowed to see. So he is peeking around a corner, almost letting me know that what we see here is not really what exists. So there's a lot of things that are kept from us on the earthbound side that we don't tap into, even if we are highly psychic, highly spiritual, highly connected to the other side with information. Much is held back, and there's so much he wants to tell. What he does tell me is that he's going to come through the writings of somebody, so somebody's going to pick him up and write what he teaches. He really fancies himself a teacher, and he's very interested in communicating with those that can hear him. And I don't know if that means someone specifically or somebody not, that he can teach and speak to them about what he experiences. It's a journey for him, and it's not the way that he thought. Although he's very grounded in certain elements of it on the other side, but there's much that he's learning and much that he wants to express. So there's a real sense of excitement with Prince's energy as I'm speaking to you. And again, he goes back to the things that we learn on Earth. And as he talks about what he did here, besides being an awesome musician, I'm saying that, and really elevating the ability to play instruments, he's showing me through the way that he's making me feel. He's coming through very much like that. I'm kind of absorbing the way that he feels, and his brain is really quick, or his spirit brain is very quick, and he's focused on many different things. What he's showing me is that when he worked on Earth, and I'm assuming he means as a musician, as an instrumentalist, and all of the things that he did, all of his public persona, that we did not really understand who he was because he was working from a different perspective. He basically puts on for me, I want to say a robe. That's how I'm seeing him right now. I am seeing him in a robe, and the robe is shifting. it's kind of translucent in my thinking, but it's shifting color-wise for me. So of course I see it to begin with in purple, and I don't know if that's in jest or just because he aligned with the color purple and he wants me to see the color purple, just because we all know that he loved the color purple. And then it goes through black, and then I'm kind of seeing it go into a white phase and then in a silver phase, and it's like he's morphing for me. So he's opening himself up and he's shifting color-wise through these energies, which I feel that when he was on earth, he knew how to work with the energy. This is a man that understood, and I'm going to use the word occult for lack of a better word, although I don't think all occult practices are as they are presented by people that we hear talk about them, because not everything is evil and not everything is good, and not everything in the good world is good or evil. It's kind of a mix depending on the spirit energy of the person and what their intention is. And this is what he shows me. And his intention was to grab great power at the time and to utilize the energy of those connected to his energy to harness more energy. So this is a person that was acutely aware of how to manifest success through utilizing the energy of people around him who focused on him and looked at him and looked up to him. So he's kind of, I feel with him like the energy was very magical in the sense that he utilized and harnessed energy for his own pursuit and purpose. So there is a focus, and some of this he did on his own, and some of this he did in combination with other people around him who were very well aware of what he was doing.
Thank you for watching. The artist formerly known as Prince is the archetype of Dionysus. Make sure you give me a like or a dislike and subscribe. If you're feeling my energy and my content, make sure you donate to the cause at Rapmythology on Cash App. It's the reincarnation of Ramakrishna, a Hayoka empath, and I'm kicking brand new flavor in your ear. That brand new flavor in your ear,